Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Yvonne Kendall, Patrick Bailey, and Christopher Stenstrom. What is a rally without music? Music has long played a vital part in the civil rights movement. So thank you to our wonderful musicians. My name is Sharon Roberson. I'm president and CEO of YWCA Nashville and Middle Tennessee. When I took this position a little over 4 years ago, I knew that one of the elements of the YWCA mission I wanted to clearly focus on, and that is eliminating racism. Today is our community rally, our theme being addressing racism as a public health crisis. Normally we have this rally on the courthouse steps with many dignitaries. We have many dignitaries here today with us. But because we know of COVID, we're having a virtual rally. And we hope to see you next year on the courthouse steps. The hashtags we're using for social media to chat about this rally are hashtag Stand Against Racism, hashtag SAR 2021, hashtag virtual SAR. Feel free to tweet about what you hear and use these hashtags and tag our handle at YWCA Nashville, and we'd like to retweet you. Stand Against Racism is not only a series of lunch and learns, but also this virtual town hall seeks to build community among those working for racial justice, to raise awareness about the negative impact of institutional and structural racism in all of our communities. And we want to build community. We want the YWCA to be that safe space where we can all come together to make our communities greater and better. I would like to take 1 minute for us to have a moment of silence. There are many reasons for us to have this, but I chose today to have a moment of silence to represent the healing that is necessary for our communities in the face of really what is unnecessary divisiveness. So we'll have our minute of silence. Thank you. And I will say that now more than ever, we as people of goodwill must take a stand against racism whenever and wherever it happens. We thank Regents Foundation of Tennessee as our Stand Against Racism presenting sponsor, and the Tennessee Human Rights Commission and Metro Human Relations Commission, who join us again as co-sponsors. The Stand Against Racism is a signature campaign of YWCA USA and is part of a larger strategy to fulfill our mission of eliminating racism, empowering women, promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. The YWCA Nashville and Middle Tennessee is dedicated to this mission and has been part of the Nashville community for over 122 years. Now, I have an incredible honor. I'm going to introduce to you someone that I view as a civil rights icon. Deputy Mayor Brenda Harris Haywood was one of the first Black students to walk through the doors of Stratford High School in 1963, and she was followed by 3 others integrating our school system. She is a career educator with many educational credentials, but most importantly, she is a passionate advocate for all those who are marginalized in our community. And it is with highest honors and great, great admiration, I introduce you to Deputy Mayor Brenda Harris Haywood. Haywood, sorry. She should be coming here. We have a lot of cooks, and so we're trying to make sure that we get this right. It's much easier when you do this in person because they just know and they come up to the mic. So she should be on shortly. And Deputy Mayor Haywood will be speaking about the racial disparities that exist in Nashville, especially given the COVID-19 crisis. Well, we will come back to the Deputy Mayor. I'm sure she will be here shortly because, as you know, she has a significant amount on her plate, and we do admire her for taking care of the people's business first. I will move on to Kinika Young. Kinika is an extraordinary attorney. Kinika is a person that had a lot of opportunities, but in her heart, she chose to be an advocate for those in our community that are in a health crisis. She is the Senior Director of Health Policy and Advocacy for the Tennessee Justice Center. She will discuss with you where we are right here in Nashville, as well as in the broader state of Tennessee, with the public health crisis rooted in historical and also contemporary racism. Kinika.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Good afternoon, everyone. For 25 years, TJC has been working to ensure access to the basic necessities of life for Tennesseans, and we've seen how systems often have barriers that keep people from what they need to be healthy. So at the start of the pandemic, we feared that certain communities would be hit harder than others. And as we all quickly saw, Black and Hispanic people had higher rates of COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. For those who were familiar with health disparities, this wasn't a surprise. Health disparities are when different groups have different health outcomes. But to understand why people of color experience health disparities, we must recognize the role of health inequities and how they are rooted in racism. Health inequities occur when different groups have different access to resources like education, housing, food, transportation, employment, and healthcare. Racism keeps people of color from getting fair access to these resources, which creates health disparities. For example, because of racism, Black and Hispanic people are more likely to work so-called essential jobs, which pay low wages, don't offer health insurance, and don't allow the luxury of working from home. This means people of color have greater exposure to the virus. They also face discrimination in access to testing and treatment. A huge factor in overcoming health disparities is access to healthcare. Black and Hispanic people are uninsured at higher rates than white people, which means they are more likely to delay or forego seeing a doctor. One of the greatest contributions to reducing racial disparities in recent history was made by the Affordable Care Act. It extended Medicaid to low-wage workers whose employers typically do not offer affordable health coverage and who cannot afford to buy coverage on their own. In states that have expanded Medicaid, racial disparities concerning access to care have been reduced as Black and Hispanic people have gained health insurance. It has led to better health outcomes such as earlier cancer diagnoses, decreased mortality, and reductions in rates of food insecurity, poverty, and evictions as people are not burdened with medical bills. Is it a coincidence that Medicaid expansion was made possible by this country's first Black president, yet 8 of the 12 states that still refuse to expand Medicaid are in the South, including Tennessee? Who knows, but the racial implications of these states' refusal to allow Medicaid expansion are stark. The South is home to 58% of the United States' entire Black population. If all remaining non-expansion states, including Tennessee, were to expand Medicaid, the majority of the uninsured people who would become eligible are people of color. So not expanding Medicaid disproportionately impacts low-income Black people, perpetuating inequities that result in preventable suffering and death. At TJC, we're equipping advocates with the facts and supporting people, especially people of color who have lived experiences, to call out health disparities and health inequities for what they are, evidence of racism. and to demand that lawmakers remove barriers and advance anti-racist policies and programs. This brings us to our call to action. Your charge today is to visit TJC's new Black Health Matters page that I'm linking in the chat. Here you can get facts about racial health disparities in Tennessee, share your story, read the stories of others, and use the tools that we provided to take action. These tools will help you to contact our state leaders and tell them to advance policies that reduce health disparities, like protecting the Affordable Care Act and accepting the billions of dollars that are available right now to give 300,000 Tennesseans health insurance, create 15,000 jobs, and help hospitals stay open. For everyone who is paying attention, this pandemic has shown us that our health, our livelihoods, and our ability to recover are all connected. Racism didn't spring up overnight, but this public health crisis has created a greater sense of urgency, and it has presented an opportunity for us to dismantle and redesign systems to become anti-racist. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Kinika. As any of you who are very interested in this subject beyond just this virtual rally, make sure that you are aware of the critical work of the Tennessee Justice Center. They are fighting on the front lines to make sure that Tennesseans are as healthy as possible, and that takes the ability to access health care. So make sure that you read about their work and understand why this is essential. Now, I am so excited to introduce the next speaker. I use my secret weapon, i.e. his spouse, to get him to be a part of this. And many of you know Dr. Wayne Riley. He has MD, MPH, MBA. He is the president of SUNY Downstate Health Sciences University, the 19th president of historic Meharry Medical College. He's a director with HCA. I can go on and on about all of his credentials. He is globally recognized, and that's a real treat for us to have someone that understands the global, the national, and the local elements of healthcare and health disparities. More importantly, I really thank him for being a dear friend, having had adventures together, and for choosing Nashville at one point to be his home. So I will introduce you without much more fanfare, but I am so excited to have our keynote, Dr. Wayne Riley.
Well, good afternoon, YWCA family and friends, and all those who believe passionately in justice, in social justice. And what an honor it is for me to answer the call of the outstanding Sharon Roberson. Sharon is one of those forces of nature that you can't resist. And when she reached out to me through my beloved of 28 years, I said, I got to do it. And so good afternoon from Brooklyn, New York. As Sharon mentioned, my wife, Dr. Charlene Dewey, is on the faculty of Vanderbilt. So I live in two cities. I live in Brooklyn and Nashville. So I spend a lot of time on planes, even during COVID, getting back home to Nashville, where Charlene is continuing her work at Vanderbilt and living in the wonderful community of Nashville. You know, these are interesting times, colleagues, and I'm so glad that the YWCA was very intentional in calling for this rally. And you're right, I look forward to the day when we can get back outside and have rallies. But this virtual rally can still provide you with a lot of sustenance, a lot of encouragement, a lot of fuel, if you will, to address what we now know, and which many of us have known in the Black and brown and lower income communities, that the health of a community is not an abstraction. And boy, how prescient you were, Sharon, you and your team, for picking this topic, because it was only 21 days ago that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, under the leadership of President Biden, Vice President Harris, and the outstanding director of the CDC, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, for the first time in United States history, labeled racism as a public health problem. think about that, friends. We have the first declaration that racism is directly linked to poor health. And we now know that more now than ever because of COVID. Ms. Young just went through some of the issues that we supposedly just discovered about healthcare disparities, but vis-a-vis COVID. But those of us who've been working in this critical area for all of our careers, and I had the wonderful honor of leading Meharry Medical College for almost 7 years. This is what we woke up every day to do. And indeed, what I'm doing here in Brooklyn, New York, is training health professionals who understand that being a doctor, nurse, public health advocate means more than just what you read in the textbooks. It means understanding the communities where you are privileged to work, understanding that communities have needs beyond the headlines, understanding that communities have problems and challenges that are not easily reduced to sound bites or to political posturing. And as Ms. Young just said, unfortunately, Tennessee is one of only 8 states of this country that have not done a sensible thing, and that is to provide Medicaid expansion to 300,000 Tennesseans who could, if that were to be done overnight, have access to better health care and decrease the likelihood that they will suffer from healthcare disparities. So Ms. Young laid it out very well. And even if you think about it nationally, if you just envision a map of the United States and you run your finger on that map from the District of Columbia all the way down through South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and then you zigzag your finger up to Tennessee, there are a whole lot of Black and brown folks in those states where I just ran my finger on the figurative map that could benefit by Medicaid expansion. And as I've always said, Sharon, look, the first thing we got to do to address healthcare disparities is put an insurance card in the hands of as many people as we can, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance. That is the first thing we need to do to address healthcare disparities. But again, we live in a time where there's some states are not enlightened enough or not committed enough to extend health insurance to as many of their citizens as possible. And again, that contributes to the public health as racism discussion that we're having today. The other thing we now know is that COVID, if you are Black or brown, you are 10 times more likely to test positive for COVID-19. 10 times more likely. And as a physician, as a public health advocate, that worries me. That should worry all of you, all of us at this rally today. What can we do individually, collectively, to raise our voices and harness our efforts to address that unfortunate reality that we're dealing with today? We're at a point where over 550,000 people have succumbed to COVID. And we had the startling admission from a former member of the former administration that at least 150,000 of those Americans should not have died but for ineffective, feckless federal policy at the beginning of this pandemic. And this is what I tell people all the time. Your decisions in terms of health and policy make a difference in how people live and if they live. So health policy is not an abstraction. That when governments and organizations and institutions like mine and Meharry and the YWCA weigh in on health topics, it's because it's directly linked to people's life. The YWCA is about life. It's about life at the early parts of existence. It's life when you're going through troubles. It's your life when you need family counseling, when you need assistance in workforce participation, domestic violence prevention, treatment, and programming. All the things that this YWCA of Nashville and Middle Tennessee does so well under Ms. Roberson, that is part of dealing with life. And so when you think about this going forward, and as you sign off to this rally later on, don't just be a passive observer, friends. You can play a role by raising the issues where you work, where you play, where you live, where you worship, about any topic related to health that has some connection to racism or nihilistic thinking that contributes to worse health, health outcomes, lower life expectancy of people that you love, and in communities that we love as well. So again, I applaud all of you for embracing this notion and understanding it and thinking about it and reading about it and praying about it and agitating and advocating for not only our community here in Nashville, but as the great John Lewis used to say, God rest his soul, the beloved community of this great nation. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Riley, or Wayne, as I'm going to call you. That was tremendous. We absolutely have to listen to all that we are receiving today. We started off with some music that got us there, but now we're hearing the preaching part of it. We're hearing what we need to know as a community, because health is so important, it is essential for us to move forward. Now we have a very exciting portion of our rally. We know that this community, the nation, the country, the world has been through a crisis with COVID-19. We had heroes that are often overlooked. But there was one group of heroes that I felt it was essential for us as a community to recognize. These local heroes are part of the Meharry Medical College Meharry Frontline. The Meharry Frontline workers from the very beginning of the pandemic. And I truly understand the very beginning of the pandemic because I was at a domestic violence shelter that continued to operate. I was amazed at these frontline workers being out there every day, making sure our community could go to a place that they trusted to have vital testing and later vaccinations. Being out there on the front line in the cold, in the rain, in the snow, in the heat, they did it all. Meharry has stood strong with the Nashville community from its very existence. Our primary care physicians, especially in our rural areas, those are Meharry doctors, Meharry nurses, Meharry PhDs. In a moment, I will turn the program over to Beverly Watts, Executive Director of the Tennessee Human Rights Commission. Beverly also sits on our advocacy committee. She's been on the board of the YW. She was Academy of Women for Achievement honoree, and she's a past recipient of an award that we are reviving this year, and it's the Carrie Hull Award. I think this is very appropriate because you have to understand the YW in Nashville used to be segregated. Carrie Hull was the first Black woman to be on the board of the white YW. I am sitting in what's called the Blue Triangle Room, and this is a room that embraces our history when we had a segregated YW, but the beautiful women of Meharry, Fisk, and Tennessee State came together and made sure that the mission of the YWCA carried out in the Nashville community for Black people. Now I will turn it over to Beverly. Unmute yourself, Beverly.
I'm always ready to run and jump and speak. That was
I
simple.
know.
All you have to do is walk up to the microphone. Here I come again. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I've had the privilege of being at these rallies for more than 10 years. It's probably about 15, actually. In addition to what Dr. Rowley and Attorney Young has talked about, let me talk about another issue that sort of compounds this health issue, and that's housing. Housing itself is one of those factors, and Dr. King was working on fair access to fair and affordable housing when he was murdered in Memphis in 1968. And it was access to decent and affordable housing that Dr. King was working for. It is the degradation and the actual condition of housing in America that also has contributed to our public health concerns. Because the housing stock throughout the South, depending on where you were, was not the best for African Americans, many of whom were working in rural communities. Some were working as tenant farmers, some were migrant farmers. So they were moving from place to place. These are the issues that continue to compound issues in our community, and it was racist in nature. The notion of how we have acquired housing and wealth in this country continues to be something that is unattainable for some communities simply because of their race. I was doing an advocacy day yesterday with a group of individuals talking with our legislative delegation, that's our senators and 2 congressional individuals. A story out of Chattanooga was interesting to me, and I knew this was the case, but I thought I'd share it with you. Because I think we always have to give people examples of how we can create positive kind of avenues in our communities. As I ask you to move toward action, it's not enough to say it's racist. We sometimes have to give people ideas to see if they can latch on to them. Well, this Chattanooga group, Green Space, does reinvestment in homes by rehabbing them. One of their clients drives a forklift. He bought his home about 20 years ago. He had drafty windows, flooring, and no insulation. They spent money and provided him resources to fix that house up. He ended up saving $637 in electrical costs alone. But the other issue was he also suffered from asthma and other respiratory issues. When his house got warmer, guess what? He got better. He was not going to the doctor as much. Racism impacts us in different ways, and this is just one of those simple ways that people don't understand how it happens. You know, we talk about, well, what should we discuss? We should be discussing ideas. We should be looking at things that work to mitigate racism where it exists. This is a simple mitigation that involved rehab, but that money was not available until we had the Neighborhood Reinvestment Act with all of the CARES money. We must look for ways to make things better in a lot of different ways. Some of it is going to be dialogue and discussion with like-minded people or people who want to learn about this. Other discussions will involve us talking with policymakers, talking to healthcare providers, public health officials, attorneys if necessary, Attorney Young to take appropriate action in the courts, to bankers and others. We must get reinvestment occurring in our communities because that's a way proactively to impact racism in America. These are structural kind of barriers that continue to perpetuate racism, and we must deal with those in an ongoing way. This is Fair Housing Month, or we're coming to the end of it. But every month should be Fair Housing Month. We should address the issues of how we provide access to decent and affordable housing for all Americans. And that's what we want to do. And the law that did that is the Fair Housing Act. And Dr. King died before it was signed into law. So we have to understand that if we want to perpetuate a legacy, we can do that. Some of it's as simple as our own neighborhoods. Some of it's as simple as talking to city officials, state officials about what we need to do to cure some of our infrastructure issues. Some of it's more difficult. And we have to understand that not everything is going to be simple. Some of it's more difficult. There will be people who will challenge and oppose us on every turn. I know, I've been doing this work for 40 plus years. So I know who will, who won't. And I know that around the corner, given the current climate and divides in America, that we're gonna face some difficult challenges. Hold your head up, find a partner. This is what I used to tell the kindergartners: cross the street with a group that you can trust. Do what you can do where you can do it. Make sure that we are addressing this issue however we can. I say that in sort of a light way, but this is really what we have to do, because this is something that will take courage in some instances and will take perseverance. It didn't happen yesterday, but it needs to start today, wherever each of us can start it. Remember, comments made in rooms, sometimes when we're one or two, we might need to challenge. Maybe it's not out in the meeting, but remember, you can go over and say, you know, that was somewhat of a problem for me, and let me tell you why. Keep it calm as you can, and if you can't say then, and I've had to walk away many times, folk, walk away and come back, but come back to it in a way that is proactive and that gives you some relief, because also racism will also hurt your psyche, your anxiety, and everything else, and it does weigh on us who have these issues in front of us. So with that, I'm going to get off of that and say, act where you can, when you can, with those you can. And if not, try to figure out who can do the actions for you. So let larger groups and others know, such as Attorney Young and such as others working on these issues, so that they can do them. And we need to look for partners. Thank the YWCA for their ongoing work of more than 100 years in this arena. This is a voice that didn't start yesterday, and they're still working. And I think it will be an ongoing process. I am hopeful that those of us who have voice will use it in the variety of ways we can do it. Some of us have more voice in more places. Some of us has voice and we can give ideas, like the issue in Chattanooga, like the housing issues. We can get out and do those kinds of things to help people cure these issues we have. Affordable housing in Nashville, and I'll end with this, is an issue. When neighborhoods start being developed, all of a sudden streets get repaired, services are improved, and other things. We need to let people know when we see that that's a problem. We need to improve when it's necessary to improve, not when development starts. That's a challenge for most people in the government, and we need to see how we can cure that. Well, on to the bigger issue and my real charge for the day. Thank you for allowing me to say those few remarks, is to present the Carrie Hull Award. I've been working with the YW since I returned to Nashville back in about 2007, 2008, went on the board, and I learned about Carrie Hull before then. I will share this because I'm old enough to tell you, I was born in Hubbard Hospital. So I know Meharry, and one of my cousins worked there for 40 years and was the head nurse, Juanita Polite. Some people know Juanita. So every once in a while, our relationships with institutions, we need to share that, because its history is a tremendous history. Carrie Hull herself was a tremendous person. This award was established in her honor, but she was one of those persons who ran the Triangle branch of the YWCA, but who had voice and who used her voice, and then served on the YWCA board for Tennessee. The Nashville Blue Triangle branch was the second largest, with over 1,000 members. In addition to being the first African-American board member of the integrated organization of the YW in Nashville, she was the first lifetime honorary board member of the YWCA. This award that I'm getting ready to give to Meharry is given to an individual or group that models the mission of the YWCA in working toward the elimination of racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. I can think of no better organization to present this to in 2021 than Meharry Medical College. They are continuing a 100+ year legacy of doing this. Sharon is holding the award, so let me present this to another friend of mine, and that's Robin Kimbrough, who I also like. Robin is one of those true heroes and one of those true warriors. Thank you, Robin, for what you do, and thank you for being a part of the Meharry family and for what Meharry has done with respect to what they do. Congratulations to Meharry for all the work that they've done on COVID. But congratulations to Meharry on his long legacy of doing these things throughout his history.
Thank you. Thank you, Beverly Watts. And you know, I look up to you as a mentor and as a fighter in the Nashville community and statewide. I am thrilled to accept this honor on behalf of Meharry Medical College. Thank you, Sharon Roberson, and to the board of directors of the YW. We are truly grateful to have this award. And I am certainly honored to accept it on behalf of Dr. James E.K. Hildreth, who is the president and CEO of Meharry Medical College. And I also accept it on behalf of the entire Meharry Medical College family. I must do a special shout out to Dr. Hildreth because he led our city through a very difficult time as we were approaching and facing the COVID crises with his expertise in infectious diseases. As already said, Meharry from its inception has provided trusted and quality access to healthcare services. We continue to eliminate healthcare disparities in our community. Meharry, as the largest HBCU healthcare center producing doctors and dentists and researchers, it is no doubt that we were definitely going to respond to the call for our city to address COVID testing, to address doing research to discover a COVID vaccine, and now administering the vaccine. This is who we are at Meharry Medical College. We are here to serve the community. It is the heart and center of who we are, Meharry Medical College. We continue to worship God through service to all, and we do stand against racism. Thank you so much to the YWCA for this amazing award.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you so much, Beverly. Thank you so
Sharon, if I could have a point of personal privilege as the
Okay, we're family. Go ahead.
I am so proud that I appointed the first woman chaplain of Meharry Medical College during my tenure. So, Reverend Hayes, you validate my faith in you many times.
Yes.
But just a historical highlight that is pertinent about Meharry to our discussion today. Ladies and gentlemen, it was 1957. And here in Nashville. Nashville was a tough place to live if you were Black. It was also a tough place to live if you were Jewish. And like many communities around the country that had strong anti-Semitism, I am very proud of the fact that in 1957, Meharry took 2 Jewish students into its student body who could not get into medical or dental school because of the Jewish quota. In those days, Jewish students would call around and apply to medical and dental school, and they would get told, well, we already have enough Jews. And so it was the courage of Meharry Medical College in 1957 to admit 2 Jewish students who went on to have outstanding careers because of their Meharry education. And again, Meharry integrated its student body almost 10 years before Vanderbilt integrated its student body. So again, a historical highlight that underscores what Reverend Hayes just said is that Meharry has been a leader in anti-racism, anti-Semitism, anti-nihilism, and it's core to its mission. And that's why I was so happy to devote 7 years of my professional life to Meharry.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Riley.
Wonderful. We are all family, but if anyone in Nashville does not know the history, the rich history of Meharry Medical College, you should know this because this is a life-changing organization. Now, Beverly said she was born at Hubbard Hospital. Believe it or not, my 2 children were born at Hubbard Hospital when people quote, like me, did not have their children at Hubbard Hospital, but the reason for that and the most beautiful experience I had was the dedication of those strong doctors to people that looked like me. So I'm the proud mother of 2 Hubbard Hospital births. So thank you so much to Meharry Medical College. I will go back in our program because our Deputy Mayor, Brenda Haywood, who I've already introduced, has joined the call. As I said before, she is a civil rights icon, a person I admire greatly. So we will hear words from our deputy mayor.
First of all, let me extend my heartfelt apology for being tardy today. I thought I was going to have to go to Meharry because I thought I was going to have a heart attack trying to get here. So we just finished our state of Metro, our Metro address with Mayor Cooper, and it went over. So I want to apologize. I'm so excited to be here. I know the program has been fantastic. I want y'all to know that as far as the mayor's office, a few months ago, God placed it on my heart to start an initiative, and it was entitled Communities of Color, because there was so much hesitancy going on among Black and Brown people. They just didn't believe in the system. They didn't believe in the vaccine. There were a lot of reasons that I found to be legitimate as to why they had chosen not to be vaccinated. So in talking to our mayor, I talked to Mayor Cooper about an initiative where I would actually partner with Representative Harold Love, and I would partner with the Metro Health Department, Dr. Kai. She is a phenomenal doctor, Dr. Shaw Kai. We teamed up and we have signed on various churches. We do town hall meetings and we educate and we enlighten and we encourage people of color to become vaccinated. And a lot of them, in hearing from our pastors and in hearing from us, they feel more confident. And we are just proud to announce, even the mayor mentioned it today in his Metro address, that so many of our people have chosen and feel comfortable about being vaccinated. We let's see, presently, we probably have 10 churches that have signed on, and I have like 15 churches on the waiting list. I'm proud to announce we're going into the Antioch area, and we are just vaccinating people of all walks of life, and we're very, very happy about it. And I'm going to cut it off because I know the time is growing nigh, but if there's anything you want to ask, I would be happy to address it. And thank you for having me. Thank you.
And thank you, Mayor. Anyone and everyone, we should be overjoyed that we have such an asset to our community. This is a person whose heart and spirit is with us. So you have a concern, I'll put it out there, give her a call, give her a message. She's a woman of action and she has a heart for our community. And now, as we close out, we have a couple of other things, so I wish that people will stay on. We have a young poet, Alexis Kershaw. Now, you've seen a lot of young poets, but we started doing this a number of years ago because we think it's very important to bring our younger generation into the stand. Alexis is a graduate of Hume-Fogg Academic Magnet and a sophomore at the University of Memphis, where she is majoring in film production. She has been writing and performing poetry for the past 5 years. She is brought to us by Southern Word, that places writer and music mentors in schools and community organizations to help them develop literacy skills, process social emotional challenges, and shape and project positive identities. Now we will hear from Alexis.
Hi, you all. As she said, my name is Alexis. Thank you so much for having me. Like she said, I am from Southern Word, been with them for very many years. And if you ever want to, hear more about the things that we're doing or check out other poets like myself, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Southern_Word. Being Black can be bad for your health. Where I go, liquor stores linger on corners, Corner stores, polka dot, the block. I think this street is my favorite. People seem to love this 7-Eleven for some reason. I am the hottest product in there. The reason people tap their foot impatiently waiting in the line, would give their left hand for a hit of me. I am taste, scent, sight, a fluid shadow kissing the light. Watch them take the first pull of me, wedging a Marlboro between their teeth and pulling a flame close. Could taste the embers on their bottom lip. I am smoke. My boss, Big Tobacco, told me they'd love me, but they eat me like candy down here. Camels, Newports, parliaments, they have learned what it means to hold their breath. Black lungs go through resistance training. Brown rib cages get hardened. Learn that compression is a part of life. What's a cigarette? What's cigarette smoke to an hour with the knee on your throat? The grocery store on Bay Street used to be my favorite hang, but last time someone sparked a cig over there, I wasn't the reason they couldn't catch their breath. The boys in blue seem to occupy the same streets I do. Make them mimic that same cough. The world is addicted to many things that kill it. I'm not the only secondhand smog that makes brown kids sputter. I've seen landfills next to playgrounds, water filled with lead. I told my boss, Big Tobacco, my work environment was getting a little uncomfortable. I keep hearing this wheezing everywhere I go, but they said that's how they like it. I am everywhere, like this fog, choking fog of racism, and you keep swallowing me, even when it burns. Studies have shown that communities of color are disproportionately exposed to air pollution. Where I wander, clean water can be a scarce commodity, and so can healthcare. Brown girls like Alexis live with the fear of bringing a life into this world. For so many reasons, I've seen them write pros and cons lists. Pro, there is a piece of her that she can watch grow. Con, she is 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than any other race. Con, Black men and women have some of the lowest life expectancies, highest in heart-related conditions, 2 times more likely to be stopped by police. Trauma so deep you could call it an ocean. Studies have shown that the stress of racism can create physical symptoms and increase the risk of diabetes and autoimmune disorders. This is a public service announcement. When skin color lowers life expectancy, something needs to change. A tide must be turned and a fact must be faced. Businesses target the poor. Tobacco and alcohol take more lives of color for a reason. I am a pawn in a much bigger game. Stop letting these companies turn your tragedy into profit. Instead of liquor stores on every corner, put a grocery store. Hold government accountable when they tamper with tap water. Get better police training. Give access to better medical care. Invest in the Black dollar. Treat the mental health of people of color. When a Black woman says she's in pain, believe her. I've seen Black moms slouched against the edge of their bed, like Atlas holding the world on his shoulders. Like the fog is so thick that maybe this day they will choke on it all. I am smoke, son of the cancer stick, heir to air pollution. I kill 400,000 people a year, but racism and your fixation with breaking Black bodies has always been America's deadliest addiction. Thank you all.
Thank you, Alexis. This is our next generation. These are the people that will carry us forward. We're so proud. Thank you so much. Now we just have a few more things very quickly. As traditional, we have a stand against racism that comes to us. It's actually a pledge, and we take the pledge as a group. And then if you do have the opportunity, if you could stay on just a little longer, you will hear another selection by our musicians. So now the Stand Against Racism pledge, and you can recite this to yourself now that you are on mute. Mindful of the continuing affliction of institutional and structural racism, as well as the daily realities of all forms of bias, prejudice, and bigotry in my own life, my family, my circle of friends, my coworkers, and the society in which I live, with conviction and hope. I take this pledge fully aware that the struggle to eliminate racism will not end with a mere pledge, but calls for an ongoing transformation within myself and the institutions and structures of our society. Okay. I pledge to look deeply and continuously in my heart and in my mind to identify all signs and vestiges of racism, to rebuke the use of racist language and behavior toward others, to root out such racism in my daily life and in my encounters with persons I know and with strangers I do not know, and to expand my consciousness to be aware and sensitive to my use of overt and subtle expressions of racism and racial stereotypes. I pledge to educate myself on racial justice issues and share what I learned in my own communities, even if it means challenging my family, my partner, my children, my friends, my coworkers, and those I encounter on a daily basis. I pledge within my means to actively work to support public policy solutions that prominently, openly, and enthusiastically promote racial equity in all aspects of human affairs, and to actively support and devote my time to YWCA, as well as other organizations working to eradicate racism from our society. YWCA USA is on a mission to eliminate racism and empower women. I join YWCA in taking a stand against racism today and every day.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Oh, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, you know, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, yes, I'm gonna let it shine. Hallelujah. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this virtual rally hosted by the YWCA. Thank you for all of our sponsors and all of our friends. We are now concluded our Stand Against Racism. We do have events every month. this is our rally, but we also have lunch and learns every month. So thank you everyone for attending and have a blessed day.